His pair of eyes that had craziness in them suddenly looked scared. It was clear that this guardian of the Imperial Senate who liked skinning others wasn't interested in experiencing it himself. Bastard! So you could get scared as well, huh? I thought a sick bastard like you would enjoy going through that experience yourself. Fei gradually approached Trace and used his words to trigger his opponent's mind mercilessly. It was an invisible torture, and Fei wanted this bastard to be under endless fear. Everything was under the king's control. When Fei was about 3 meters away from Trace, a sudden change occurred. A vicious expression suddenly replaced the fear that was on Trace's ugly and distorted face, and he waved his hand and shot out a dash of golden sword energy. This sword energy was extremely bright like the stars, and it dashed at Fei like a meteor. Also, the power and pressure this golden sword energy emitted dropped the temperature in the palace by a dozen degrees. Whoosh! The sword energy was shot out from a scroll, and it was aimed toward Fei's forehead. It was so fast that it felt like even space was being cut apart by it. This golden sword energy was far beyond Trace's current capabilities. Right now, Trace had a crazy, vicious, yet proud grin on his ugly face. The fear and the desperation he showed on his face a moment ago was all a part of his act. He wanted to fool the king of Chambord and make Ladder drop his guards. At the moment that Trace thought was perfect, he unleashed his most powerful tool. Each of the guardians of the Imperial Senate received a dash of golden sword energy that was sealed in a scroll from the great Emperor Yasin. It was for them to use when they were in life-threatening danger, and they could activate the scrolls by injecting a slight amount of warrior energy or magic energy into them. At this moment, Trace felt like he already saw the terrified expression on the king of Chambord's face when this dash of golden sword energy was about to penetrate his head. This sword energy was from Emperor Yasin, and it was the most powerful thing in the Zenith Empire. Trace believed that this dash of sword energy could destroy any enemies. However, the reality was far crueler than fantasies and dreams. Just when the wicked smile on Trace's face got to the brightest, a smile that was filled with mockery appeared on Fei's face. The king slowly reached out with 2 of his fingers and stopped the sword energy that represented invincibility at zenith between them. Even though the golden sword energy shivered and tried to go forward, it wasn't able to do so. Before it could even break the skin on the 2 fingers, it surrendered. The golden energy flame started to die down, and it slowly vanished like a collapsed sand sculpture. Trace's eyes instantly froze and looked defeated. Then, they turned white like a fish's eyes when it was taken out of the water. His face got so pale that even a slight shade of red couldn't be seen. Impossible! How? How can this be? Is the king of Chambord stronger? Stronger than Emperor Yasin? This outcome stunned Trace, and he couldn't believe his eyes. The king easily obliterated his ultimate trump card, and real fear swamped his mind like an endless tsunami. As a result, his body started to shiver uncontrollably. Idiot! You are a real idiot. Your idiocy isn't better than your disgusting face. I already told you that I defeated another bastard who said he was a guardian of the Imperial Senate, and you are the second one. It means that I already saw this kind of sword energy once. Do you think I'm stupid enough not to have my guards up? Fei looked down at Trace and said with a murderous tone, "What? Is that your last-ditch effort? If you don't have any other way of fighting back, your first-hand experience is about to start now." The chilly words and intense murderous spirit froze Trace's mind, and his hands shivered rapidly. Unexpected changes occurred again. Trace suddenly turned around and kneeled. Like Mayor Soroyov, he started kowtowing and begging anxiously as tear and snot slid down his face. "Please don't kill me. Supreme King Alexander, you are a warrior who is well loved by the gods. I'm willing to kiss your boots and become your humble and low servant. I'm willing to battle for you, and my moon-class strength can provide you with a lot of value. As long as you are willing to spare my life, your will would become my mission, and my life would be under your command." Fei was surprised, and a mocking smile appeared on his face again. It was heard that the most vicious and cruel people in the world were, in fact, timid and weak on the inside, and Trace was this type of person. Even though he was a moon-class elite, He rolled and kneeled on the ground and cried and begged for mercy. It was ironic that he was a guardian of the Imperial Senate. Fei suddenly greatly disliked this so-called Imperial Senate. "No, please. Great King. Please spare me. Please use your kindness." Trace already had an ominous feeling about everything, and fear consumed his wicked mind, causing him to kneel and beg for his life dearly. Fei looked at this ugly man before him as a disgusted look flashed by on his face. Then, he lightly shook his head and said, "Sorry, I don't want to show you any mercy." As soon as he said that, an invisible force lifted this moon-class elite who was on the verge of mental collapse into the air before he could respond again. Then, something terrifying happened. Starting from his ugly face, the skin on his body started to fall bit by bit, as if it was a layer of paint on the walls of an ancient building or the cracked shells of a boiled egg. A horrifying scream instantly sounded in the palace. Under Rybree's assistance, Arthur finally recovered some of his energy, and tears rolled down his face. "Wah!" As he sobbed in deep sorrow, Arthur slowly turned around and looked at the 19 skinless corpses that weren't far from him. He couldn't hold back the sadness anymore and cried loudly. The revenge for his brothers finally took place. Lied, Gue-san, John, George, Molly. Brothers, do you see this? Mr. Alexander avenged for us. That villain received his fair punishment. Brothers, you guys, rest in peace. Arthur's cry broke Fei's heart. Then, the king turned to Trace and looked at him. The process took more than a dozen minutes. As Trace's skin fell off slowly, blood gushed out of his flesh. Soon he was covered in blood and it was hard to tell his limbs apart. Out of his entire body, only his eyes were untouched. As he twitched and screamed, he stared at Fei with a vicious and poisonous expression. "Why? You don't think it is as fantastic as you expected?" Fei said coldly. Even though the screams sounded horrific, Fei didn't waver. He slowly added, "I apologize. This is my first time doing this, and I'm not as skillful as you and couldn't get one complete human skin." The other people in the palace all looked terrified. At this moment, the king of Chambord looked like a demon who just walked out of hell in their eyes. It would be a nightmare to face an opponent like him. "Don't you worry. My skill will get better and better. Rybree lost 19 of his dearest brothers, and the Empire lost 19 bravest warriors. Therefore, I have decided to skin you 19 times. I bet that you could no longer scream by then." Fei took out a bottle of full rejuvenation potion and slowly poured some of it onto Trace's bloody body. Soon, skin started to grow out of Trace's body, and even his burned-like ugly face got smooth skin again. That was probably his face before the accident that destroyed his face, and he looked somewhat handsome. "Here is the second run." Fei's cold voice made everyone in the palace shiver uncontrollably. In this night, one of the guardians of the Imperial Senate, Moon-class Trace, got skinned 19 times continuously. In the end, his voice turned weak and sounded like the whining of an animal, and his life ended in pain, regret, and mental collapse. Now, Fei was finally able to suppress his murderous spirit. He slowly turned his head and looked at Special Envoy Matthewson. He smiled and said, "Your turn." As soon as Matthewson heard what Fei said, a desperate expression appeared on his face as he gritted his teeth and smacked his fist toward his head. He tried to commit suicide. In fact, he was terrified by what Fei did to Trace, who was a Moon-class elite. That shocking scene made Matthewson lose the courage to live on. Rather than experiencing that horrifying torture, he wanted to kill himself and escape from the pain. However, Fei's voice sounded again. "Humph, are you scared now? If I don't allow you to die, you couldn't die." As Fei sneered, he looked toward Matthewson and sent over his power as a Moon-class elite. Just like how a Moon-class elite could freeze and target someone with warrior energy and magic energy, Fei used his pure physical strength and locked down Matthewson. Matthewson instantly shivered, and he was no longer able to move his body. His hand froze 5 centimeters away from his forehead, and he couldn't do anything to kill himself. "You, Alexander, you are too cruel. You aren't a human. You are a demon." Matthewson cussed viciously. I can only suppress demons like you guys if I turn into a demon myself. What? You think what I'm doing now is inhumane? I believe that the 19 brave warriors of the Empire asked you the same thing when they were tortured to death, and their screams and groans are still resonating in this palace. What? Don't you hear it? When you guys tortured and killed those 19 loyal warriors of the Empire in the most gruesome way, why didn't you feel like you were inhumane? Faye said as he looked at Matthewson with his sharp eyes. When the latter couldn't refute anything, Faye continued and added, if you were a bit humane and killed them directly without torturing them, I might give you guys a smooth and painless ending. However, you no longer qualify for a proper and painless death. Desperation filled Matthewson's eyes. Faye no longer paid attention to him. He glanced around and looked past everyone until he saw Rybri, and he said, Rybri, go back to the campsite with Arthur right now. Gain back control of Dual Flag City before dawn arrives, and arrest everyone who is involved in the killing of our brothers. Then, interrogate them and trial them. Everyone who is guilty must be held responsible. Before the new order from the Imperial Military Headquarters gets here, you are in control of everything. As you wish. Rybri bowed and saluted at Faye. After he looked around and saw who else was in the palace, he hesitated a little and murmured, Sir, the leaders are already punished, and the rest of them don't need to be penalized any further. I already destroy their warrior energies and energy channels, and they could only live like regular people from now on. Send them back to the whip of the Thunder Lord. As to the guilty nobles such as Mayor Soryov, the native commanders and soldiers can discuss and deal with them. Yes, Your Majesty. Rybri walked out of the palace with Arthur by his side. After he took a few steps forward, he suddenly realized something. He turned around and asked, Sir, then you? I'm going to the capital and I need to meet our god of war, His Highness, Faye replied confidently. His expression didn't change, and it was clear that he planned to do this all along. Ah? Go to St. Petersburg? Is this a good time? After all, Rybri was shocked by what Faye said. What happened today at Dual Flag City is already insane. Mr. Alexander had turned this place upside down, and the nobles and influential figures at the capital would be stunned. Who knows what kind of counterattack they would plan? Doesn't matter what it is going to be powerful and deadly, Rybri thought. He was planning to go back to the native military forces campsite, kill everyone who knew what happened here, and take on all the blame and guilt. He planned to be the scapegoat for Faye. That was why he was concerned and worried that Faye was going to the capital right now. The capital was heavily guarded by masters, protected by elite soldiers and legions, and the magic towers and magic arrays in there were dense like trees in a forest. That protection was tight enough. On top of that, Emperor Yasin resides there, Rybri thought. Although it is rumored that he is dying, his power couldn't be neglected. If Mr. Alexander goes there now, he will be in a huge disadvantage. Faye already saw through Rybri's mind. He laughed and said, Don't worry. I know the limits. There shouldn't be any issues. Crown Prince His Highness is a little too pressing. If I don't slap back, our god of war, will think that I am really scared of him. More stuff might happen in the future if I don't go, so I will solve this issue once for all. Rybri gaped. He vaguely guessed Faye's thoughts, and he was even more shocked. He knew that he couldn't dissuade the king of Chambord. Therefore, after some thinking, he added politely, Sir, you have been busy today already. Why don't you rest for the night in Dual Flag City, and I could get a team of elite cavaliers from the native military force tomorrow and guard you too. No need. I will be back real soon. Before Faye finished speaking, a pair of silver sword energy wings that had a wingspan of 30 meters appeared on his back. Then, the king grasped onto Special Envoy Matthewson and dashed into the sky like a silver light. Soon, the sharp air-piercing noises sounded, and they disappeared into the sky. However, they left a series of afterimages in the sky. As if the sky was severely wounded, a silver-white line stayed in the dark sky and wasn't willing to leave. Rybri opened his mouth but didn't say anything. After experiencing this incident, this great general who had been situated in the huge city in the northwest region of Zenit for more than a dozen years, suddenly realized that he only saw the king of Chambord's real side today. This king enjoys the ultimate freedom, and he is like a godly dragon that soars in the high sky. Even though the crown prince, his highness, is unreachable for a lot of people, compared to the king of Chambord, he is weaker, less strategic, and less heroic. The two of them aren't on the same level, he thought. Perhaps only Emperor Yasin could suppress this young king if he is back to his prime. After Rybri looked at the stars in the sky for a while, he took out that medal and gave it back to his guard Arthur. Then, he patted his brave guard's shoulder and didn't say anything else. You are really heading toward the capital? You are mad. You are seeking your own death. Ha ha ha. This is good. Crown Prince, His Highness will tear you apart. Mathewson was being held by Faye by the neck like a chicken in the hand of a farmer, and he wasn't able to move at all. When he lowered his head, he saw mountains and forests passing him quickly. He could only hear loud wind-blowing noises, and the sparks created by the friction between the air and Faye's energy sphere when they were traveling at high speed almost blinded Mathewson. Flying was the privilege of masters on and above the realm of Moonclass. If it weren't for Faye's silver energy sphere that blocked all the natural forces outside, Mathewson, who was only a mid-tier 5-star warrior, would have been torn into pieces by the crazy blade-like wind in the high sky. Gradually, Special Envoy Mathewson, who already gave up on life, realized that the king was really headed toward St. Petersburg. As he was shocked, he also got excited and cursed Faye viciously. However, Faye completely ignored him and didn't even look at him. After about 30 minutes, the land before them started to get bright. Like stars in the sky, lights were scattered around and shone brightly. The lights were all connected as if all the stars in the sky gathered, and it was magnificent and shocking. Half of the sky was lit up by the light, and the buildings looked majestic. The capital of Zenit, St. Petersburg, was here. St. Petersburg at night was peaceful yet spectacular. Even though he was close, Faye didn't slow down. Like a meteor that was falling from the sky, Faye fluttered his huge wings and dashed down toward the capital fiercely. Under the nightly sky, the king's eyes looked bright and murderous. When Faye was about 10 kilometers away from the capital, the soldiers on the ground already noticed that something was off. Therefore, one of the 10 main battle legions of Zenit, Gigantic Force Legion, that was protecting the capital moved. 6 dashes of green energy flames shot toward Faye from the ground like surface-to-air missiles. Whoosh! 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 Sharp air-piercing noises sounded, and the huge arrows that had warrior energy flames around them passed by Faye. These 6 arrows weren't aimed at Faye. Instead, they were aimed around Faye and were only a warning signal. After all, anyone who could fly in midair was at least a Moon-class elite, and attacking such a master without figuring out his or her intentions first might offend him or her. If a misunderstanding was created, even the Legion commander of the Gigantic Force Legion couldn't bear the responsibility. Please land onto the ground. You are already inside the air defense zone of St. Petersburg of Zenit. According to the laws of this empire, flying in the sky above the capital is strictly prohibited. A loud shout sounded from the ground, and a series of magic energy fluctuations rippled through the air. Faye already sensed that no one in the Gigantic Force Legion could pose a threat to him. The person who just talked was only a peak 5-star warrior, and he used a kind of magic devices to project his voice so far out into the sky. At this moment, in the military campsites around St. Petersburg, various figures enveloped in magic energy flames slowly rose above the ground. It was the Mage Brigade in the Gigantic Force Legion. This was the advantage of being a mage. Even though they weren't at Moon class yet, they could learn spells such as floating, no gravity, and wings of wind to fly into the air in battle. Ha ha ha! You have been spotted. Surrender. Little king, you still have the chance to surrender now. Otherwise, you would be shot down like a dumb bird. The legions around the capital already discovered you. Mathewson started to gloat, although he wasn't sure where the king of Chambord was taking him and what for. He completely relaxed at this moment. Compared with Dual Flag City, the closer he was to the capital, the safer he was. However, Faye didn't even look at him. A dash of energy entered Mathewson's body, and a tearing pain instantly shut this special envoy up. Fei saw the giant magic crossbows that were pulled out and the mages who were floating into the sky. However, he completely overlooked them. Without declaring and announcing his identity, Fei fluttered his silver sword energy wings and dashed forward even faster. He instantly bypassed the gigantic Force Legion and didn't give them the time to react. Oh damn! Enemy! This master holds hostility toward the Empire. Quickly inform the defense minister and get all the protection array formations to function at 100% capacity. A Moon-class elite's invasion of St. Petersburg was something very significant. If it weren't handled properly, it would be a disaster for the Empire. After all, the amount of damage a Moon-class elite could do was devastating. It might be even more than the amount of destruction a main battle legion could create. Therefore, even though the gigantic Force Legion was alerted, and such an incident had never happened in recent years, none of them dared to make a move without orders from higher-ups. Dashes of magic warning signals were sent into the sky like fancy fireworks. After seeing them, ear-piercing siren instantly sounded along the defense walls of St. Petersburg, and this great city that was deep asleep under the stars got woken up. Soldiers started to run along the defense walls, and many defensive weapons that were nowhere to be seen were taken out of the secret locations, revealing their fangs. In just a matter of a few minutes, well-trained and fully armed soldiers appeared on the defense walls. With stern expressions, they stood still and waited for the commands from their superiors. A lot of powerful mages and warriors who were rarely seen by ordinary soldiers also rushed to the defense wall. With energy flames burning around them, terrifying auras appeared as they unleashed their full strengths. In the meantime, the numerous magic towers also emitted dominant magic energy fluctuations. Dashes of magic energies were shot into the sky, and the magic energies gather into a pool in the sky before expanding to all directions, forming a giant orange energy sphere and protecting the entire St. Petersburg. This was a protective array formation that was numerous times more powerful than Earth's protection magic array formation at Dual Flag City. This energy sphere was powered by numerous mages and magic towers in the city, and it was thick. With the dense magic elements formed into a thick layer of protection array, it had insane durability and protective abilities. It was able to defend against almost all physical and magical attacks, and it could block everything outside of it. Even if the attacker was a top-tier Moon-class elite and had high-level combat weapons, this array formation could still protect the buildings in the city, especially the royal palaces. In most cases, no one was capable of penetrating through the energy sphere and causing damage to the city. In less than 10 minutes, the entire St. Petersburg completed its transformation smoothly and rapidly. The beautiful and peaceful city that was asleep turned into a vicious battle beast that showed its fangs. However, it felt like Fei didn't see any of this. His descending speed didn't decrease at all. Instead, it was increasing. Like a moth that was flying toward a burning flame, Fei dashed down at the capital that was well protected. There was a long flame tail behind him. He was about to clash with the orange energy sphere. Whoosh! 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 Since the initial warning was useless and didn't achieve anything, the protection mechanisms and forces started their merciless attacks. Dashes of arrows and magic energies that contained insane forces drew out many colorful lines in the dark sky like fireworks, and the traces of warrior energies left by the combat weapons that were used by star-level warriors also left dangerous marks in the sky. Tens of thousands of streaks of energies combined, and they enveloped the sky like colorful waves. Also, they devoured Fei at the same time. It was the combined attack that aggregated the strengths of all the warriors and mages in the capital. Although the energies were combined messily, it was still powerful. Even if a low-tier Sun-class lord were hit by it, he or she would be injured severely. At this moment, many people in the capital thought, "Who is this Moon-class elite? How dare he attack the capital this recklessly?" But now, he is enveloped by this terrifying attack. He is probably turned into dust now, right? Wait, no, he is not dead. Look there. He is not harmed. He is getting closer. A 5-star warrior suddenly opened his eyes wide, pointed at a dash of silver energy in the sky, and screamed as if he saw something unimaginable. Everyone on the defense wall of St. Petersburg looked up. Just like what that warrior said, even though the massive amount of energy waves were exploding and tearing the dark sky apart, creating spatial gaps that fixed themselves in a split second, that figure in the silver energy sphere wasn't harmed. Even though an area of tens of square kilometers in the sky was turned into a death zone, that master was still moving forward as if he was casually swimming through an ocean of sharks. This man easily got through that death zone and quickly approached the defense wall. Everyone on the defense wall was shocked. How powerful is he? What level is he on? How could he get around the terrifying attack this easily? Is he a Sun-class lord? They thought. What are you guys standing around for? Quick! Attack again! A 7-star warrior shouted on the defense wall, and his voice resonated in the sky like a thunder. He woke everyone up from the shock, and the warriors and mages started to attack again, resulting in a giant pool of energy reappearing in the sky. At this moment, changes occurred. A roar sounded in the sky and resonated in the area. It was so loud that people felt like their heads were dizzy and their visions were blurry. I'm King Alexander of Chambord. I'm here only for Andrew Arshavin and don't want to attack the city. Anyone who dares to attack me again shall bear the consequences. In a stone palace that was the headquarters of the Imperial Patrol, Second Prince Dominguez, who was resting on a bamboo chair with the little disabled dog, Oka, in his arms, suddenly opened his eyes. Under the light yellow light, the shocked expression on his face looked clear. Such a powerful sensation. Someone is attacking the capital? Who is it? Who dares to do such a thing? Could it be? A figure suddenly appeared in this handsome prince's mind, and a name jumped out of his mouth subconsciously. Could it be? The King of Chambord. In the recent few days, Crown Prince Arshavin, who earned fame and influence through the wars, had been plotting against the King Alexander of Chambord. This was a known fact in St. Petersburg, and many nobles and influential figures had been counting down the King of Chambord's doomsday. However, Second Prince Dominguez and his henchmen decided to stand by Faye's side for some reason. Especially Dominguez's #1 advisor, demonic woman Paris, and his most loyal follower, Redbeard Granello. They had been vocal in their support toward the King of Chambord in various situations, and they used the power of Second Prince Dominguez to interrupt and delay the Imperial Military Headquarters plan in interrogating the commanders such as Shevchenko, Rai, Hork, Canort, and Cindy in the Wolf Teeth Legion. Their words and their actions showed everyone that they were on the side of King Alexander. The current situation wasn't in favor of Second Prince Dominguez. His influence had been decreasing drastically ever since Crown Prince Arshavin got the victories in the wars against the Spartax Empire and the Eindhoven Empire. Therefore, a lot of people didn't understand why this prince was trying his best to help a little king who was doomed from the beginning, just like how people didn't understand why Crown Prince Arshavin was determined to take out a talented young man like King Alexander of Chambord. All kinds of rumors were being passed around. Some people were saying that demonic woman Paris fell in love with the young king, but others stated that the person who fell for the King of Chambord was Second Prince Dominguez. After all, it was rumored in the past that Second Prince Dominguez, who was extremely handsome, was into men. After hearing Dominguez's gasp, Paris, who was picking the petals off a rose on a chair, suddenly straightened her back, and glares suddenly appeared in her eyes. She stood up, walked to the window, and stared into dark sky in her long white dress. As if she thought about something, she nodded and smiled. Perhaps it is him, but it could also be someone else. One thing is for sure. When that man goes crazy, he is daring enough to do such a thing. Redbeard Granello stood behind Second Prince Dominguez quietly. However, bright lights were flashing in his eyes, and it showed that this person who controlled the Imperial Patrol in the capital wasn't calm on the inside as he appeared on the outside. In the huge black tower that was surrounded and protected by 10 smaller black towers, there was a tall man who was sitting down on a chair. He had short, blonde hair, and his brows were sharp like knives. He suddenly opened his eyes and stopped resting, and 2 dashes of light shot out of his eyes and pierced into the dark sky. So reckless. Is someone trying to charge at the capital alone? Ha ha ha, nothing this interesting had happened at St. Petersburg for a long time. Who is it? Could it be that little guy? At the same time, a series of energy fluctuations appeared in the other 10 towers around the central tower. It was clear that the 10 executive knights also discovered this insane incident. Guard your own towers. You guys aren't allowed to leave unless you have my permission. This man's incontestable voice sounded in the main halls of the 10 towers. Soon, the 10 energy surges all quieted down and disappeared into the black towers. Royal Palace inside the Grand Hall. A figure who was semi-lying down on a golden dragon throne suddenly opened his eyes, and a mystic glare appeared. Not sure what this old emperor was thinking about, but he soon closed his eyes again. Then, clouds of misty golden energy enveloped the dragon throne and blocked everything off. The atmosphere inside the palace was like a dead lake, lacking vitality. Also, the light smell of potion and medicine floated in the air. Then, a series of rapid footsteps sounded outside the palace. A master who was wearing a golden guardian armor quickly walked into the palace and single-kneeled. He said loudly, "Your Majesty, a powerful master is charging at the capital, and the city defense array is already activated. Your Majesty, should we initiate the royal palace's magic array and send godly dragon guards to hold the enemy out of the city?" The figure on the dragon throne didn't respond for a long time, as if he fell asleep. However, this master didn't dare to urge him at all. After a while, this figure on the dragon throne opened his mouth and said, "Wait." The Imperial Military Headquarters in St. Petersburg, in front of the gate of the palace that represented the supreme military power of the empire, Crown Prince Arshavin was standing there in a long black cape. As he looked at the sky in the northwest direction, a glare appeared in his eyes. Behind him, there were more than a dozen most powerful officials in the Imperial Military Headquarters. They were standing there humbly and surrounded the prince like stars around the moon. After all, even though Crown Prince Arshavin wasn't the emperor yet, he already had complete control of the military power of Zenith secretly. Rather than flattering this young prince like usual, the officials all looked at the orange magic energy sphere with stern expressions. In fact, they were focusing on the pool of colorful energies that was dispersing into the sky in the northwest. Even though it was prettier than fireworks, it also represented insane danger and death. Which one of you could tell me who that is? How dare this person attack the capital of our empire? Arshavin asked without even turning his head around, and his expression wasn't pretty. He wiped out the nemesis of Zenith, Spartax, and he obliterated another old opponent, Eindhoven. After that, he quickly returned to the capital heroically and finally gained complete control of the Imperial Military Headquarters. Then, his plan was executed slowly yet steadily. This was the time for him to establish prestige and dominance, making the final charge at the throne. However, this incident that was super rare occurred. Even if the intruder were eliminated, this was already a huge disgrace to the Imperial Military Headquarters and the troops. Now, Arshavin's political enemies who were suppressed to an extreme degree could use this fact to attack him. The officials in the Imperial Military Headquarters looked at each other and couldn't answer Arshavin's question. They got nothing. After all, their intelligence network didn't get any information on this prior. "This is disappointing, could you?" Crown Prince Arshavin couldn't help but scold. However, before he could finish, something happened. "I'm King Alexander of Chambord. I'm here only for Andrew Arshavin and don't want to attack the city. Anyone who dares to attack me again shall bear the consequences." This loud roar sounded in the sky like thunder, and it interrupted Arshavin. This voice easily penetrated through the orange magic array and sounded by everyone's ear clearly, making their heads buzz. Arshavin gaped and couldn't finish his sentence. The officials behind him were stunned as well. Their expressions froze on their faces, and they looked at Crown Prince Arshavin and didn't know if they should laugh or cry. "Oh, this mysterious and powerful master is the King Alexander of Chambord, who is praised by half of the people and slandered by the other half. Also, he is charging at the capital because of Crown Prince Arshavin. Attacking the capital is already a big crime on its own, and he is also calling the Crown Prince by name," people thought. For the last while, the rumor of battles between the Crown Prince and the King of Chambord got spread around, and even the regular people in St. Petersburg knew about it. Now with Fei's sudden appearance, this rumor was solidified, and people knew that the two young men were like water and fire. They couldn't coexist in the same space. What did Crown Prince Arshavin do? He provoked the king of Chambord so much that this young king traveled to the capital at this time during the night. The thing that shocked the people the most was Fei's strength. When did the king of Chambord get this strong? He is able to dodge the attack of tens of thousands of masters as well as magic arrays, and he is flying in mid-air. Half a year ago during the affiliated kingdom competition, the king of Chambord was only a 6-star warrior. In only 6 months he got to moon class. They thought. Some people already knew about this, but it was still shocking to most people who didn't know. After all, the news and information couldn't be passed around that fast in this world. If the king of Chambord has enough time, he could potentially become a supreme warrior. Too bad. He is too young. What he is doing right now is too impulsive. Charging at the capital is something that couldn't be forgiven. The power of the royal family could easily defeat him, and the ending for the king of Chambord couldn't be anything else but death. This was the thought that was on most people's minds. On the defense wall of St. Petersburg, after Fei shouted, some of the masters decided to stop attacking. The king of Chambord is one of the few young talents in the empire, and it was rumored that he captured the murderers of Marshal St. Krasik. Also, he was able to fend off the enemies of Jax using a legion of lousy soldiers, buying Empire the time to deal with the Spartax Empire and the Eindhoven Empire. Since he is a person of honor and merit, and he is not attacking the capital, we don't need to block him. However, other people didn't think that way. Doesn't matter what, flying above the capital is strictly forbidden. The king of Chambord is at a place of no return. To the people on the side of Crown Prince Arshavin, this was the best opportunity for them to eliminate the king of Chambord. Therefore, some master already shouted, commanding soldiers and others around them to attack Fei again. Various energy surges appeared in the sky again like colorful flames, and they dashed at Fei ferociously. Damn it! Damn you, the king of Chambord! I'm still. I'm dead for sure. Special Envoy Matthewson, who was being held by Fei, couldn't get away, and he quickly closed his eyes as the dashes of energies rushed toward them. He got scared, and he quickly cursed Fei in his mind. At this critical moment, Fei sped up even more and descended toward the city. It felt like he couldn't wait to collide with the attack that combined the power of many masters in St. Petersburg. He is seeking his death. Just as everyone thought that the king of Chambord was crazy, something mystic happened. A series of silver ripples appeared in the air, and a mysterious stone throne appeared under the king. This throne had beautiful engravings on it, and there were warriors and goddess statues around it, making it look like the throne that belonged to the king of gods. Under the protection of this mysterious throne, the king of Chambord blinked and instantly disappeared. Disappeared. What happened? Did he escape? That stone throne. What is that? Why did I feel a holy and inviolable sensation from it? The masters on the defense wall all sensed a strange atmosphere. The disappearance of the king of Chambord gave them an ominous feeling, and that strange throne shocked them. At this moment, someone shouted, "Look there! He is there! Unbelievable! How did he do it?" He directly passed through the defensive energy sphere of the city. Is this the teleportation ability of Sun-class lords? Teleportation. It was a 6-star warrior, and he was pointing at a location behind the defense wall and under the protection of the grand protective magic array of the city. As he shouted those words, a terrified expression appeared on his face. Everyone turned around, and they were stunned by what they saw. The king of Chambord. He dodged everyone's attack, and he quietly passed through the defensive energy sphere of the city, appearing in the sky of St. Petersburg, which is inside layer of protections. This is truly shocking. Even the legendary Sun-class lords who are invincible couldn't achieve this easily, right? People thought. After the king of Chambord smoothly went through layers of protection, everyone got nervous. Right now, St. Petersburg was like a girl who was naked, and it couldn't defend itself very well. At this moment, Even a moon-class elite could cause a disaster at the city. As everyone was surprised, another series of ripples appeared in the sky. The king of Chambord and his mysterious throne disappeared again. In the next second, Faye appeared above the Imperial military headquarters. The throne of chaos was floating 1,000 meters above the ground gracefully and elegantly, and Faye was standing on it like a god who was in the clouds. As he looked down, two beams of silver light dashed out of his eyes, pierced through the darkness, and enveloped the figure who was standing in front of the palace in a black cape and robe. "How dare you be so reckless in front of Crown Prince His Highness?" Someone shouted on the ground, and more than a dozen huge magic arrows were shot toward Faye using magic military crossbows. Faye only lightly waved his hand as if he was trying to get rid of a few flies. However, his casual move blew all the powerful magic arrows away like straws in crazy wind. Then, these heavy arrows fell from the sky and landed on some houses, making loud noises and destroying a few properties. Invincible! On the ground, Arshavin sensed the intense murderous spirit in Faye's eyes, and he looked angry yet concerned. Behind him, more than a dozen officials swallowed their saliva and looked scared. "Alexander, attacking the capital and raiding the Imperial military headquarters are both illegal, and you are ignoring the laws of the Empire. How dare you?" As his black cape fluttered in the wind, Arshavin stood straight and unleashed his visible murderous spirit as well. Even though he couldn't fly in the sky like Faye, he demonstrated the presence of a godlike military commander. When he looked up and asked with a furious tone, his voice got projected out by his warrior energy. "Ha ha 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 ha! Are you worthy enough to talk about the laws with me?" As if he heard the funniest joke, Faye laughed in the sky, and his laughter resonated in this great city. "What do you think I'm here for? I'm not here to BS with you. When your henchmen murdered the most loyal soldiers of the Empire in the Northwest, did you think about the laws? There are conflicts between us, but you have to get ordinary and innocent people involved. Even though you are a prince, you deserve to die. How dare you talk to Crown Prince His Highness like this? Humph! Little king, you are seeking your death. Get down from the sky." As the roars sounded, two black shadows dashed out of the Imperial military headquarters and toward Faye. These two people were able to fly in the air, so they were at least new moon elites. While Faye was focused on Arshavin, they suddenly launched attacks at Faye using combat weapons. Under the moonlight, the two combat weapons reflected cold glares and emitted terrifying energies. "Fuck off!" Faye punched down and said, "When your master is talking, be quiet." A powerful physical energy dashed down from the sky, and it was indefensible. The two figures who were trying to sneak attack were severely injured. As they spat out mouthfuls of blood, they fell from the sky even faster. Bam! They destroyed a few houses with their bodies. What? These two guardians of the Imperial Senate got defeated so easily. The top-tier officials of the Imperial military headquarters were stunned, and they looked at that demonic figure in the sky with fear. It was clear that the power of the King of Chambord shocked them, and the smart ones already realized that things weren't as simple as they seemed. "Arshavin, use everything you've got. Don't you want to kill me once for all? Do it now so others couldn't say that I didn't give you the opportunity." Humph! Faye's cold words stabbed in the Crown Prince's heart like blades. Crown Prince Arshavin was the #1 successor to the throne, and he had a ton of influence over politics and military. However, he felt powerless and weak now. He couldn't even threaten the person who was shaming him in the sky. "What? Don't you have anything else? Let me give you a gift." As Faye said coldly, he threw down something. As soon as the King of Chambord moved his arm, the soldiers and masters around Crown Prince Arshavin got nervous. They were protecting him, and they were afraid that the King of Chambord would lose his mind and kill the Crown Prince of Zenith right in front of them. If that happened, it would be a real tragedy. Whoosh! An orange flame-like object directly fell from the sky, and it was about half a meter wide. However, no powerful warrior energy or magic energy surge could be detected from this flame. "Ah! No! Your Highness! Please save me! Ah! Save me! Your Highness!" A series of horrifying screams sounded from this dash of flame as it fell from the sky like a meteor. As soon as he heard this voice, Arshivin's expression changed. He was too familiar with this voice. "Move away!" He pushed away the soldiers in front of him and made a big empty space. In the next moment, this dash of flame landed on the ground, but it didn't break apart. It was clear that the king of Shambord used insane granular control of his strength. Slowly, the flames around this object disappeared, revealing a burned-up person. The skin of this person was turned completely back, and the skin would crack when this person moved, resulting in bloody wounds. However, it seemed like a cloud of energy protected his face, and it wasn't burned. At the moment, he was curled up like a cooked shrimp, and his face expressed the amount of pain he was in. As this burned person slowly reached out his black stick-like right arm in front of Arshivin, he said in a weak and hoarse voice, "Crown Prince, Your Majesty, save me." Then his body stiffed and he died on the spot. This person was the special envoy Mathewson, whom Arshivin sent to Dual Flag City not too long ago to execute his series of plans, and the king of Shambord killed Mathewson right in front of Arshivin's eyes as a protest. "Alexander!" Arshivin roared as he stared at Faye ferociously. He was the named Zenith's god of war for a reason, and his presence and murderous spirit was pressing. Regular people who heard this roar and saw his dominating presence would tremble in fear and kneel. However, that wasn't the case for Faye. The only response Faye had for him was a series of laughter. "Ha ha 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 ha. An eye for an eye. I'm just here to return a gift." As Faye stood on the throne of chaos, he looked down at Crown Prince Arshivin and said in a light tone, as if he was a demon who was indifferent to killing, "You reached out your hand into Dual Flag City and tried to cover people's mouths and kill them, and you should have been prepared for this. What? You think I'm cruel and ruthless? If you knew what your henchmen have been doing at Dual Flag City, I'm sure you won't be this angry." Faye threw Mathewson down from the sky because he wanted the latter to experience a pain that was comparable to being skinned alive. Just like how he dealt with Guardian Trace of the Imperial Senate, he wanted to avenge for the 19 guards of Rybri and many other soldiers who were killed by these evil people. Faye didn't plan to let go of Mathewson from the beginning. "Who do you think you are? How dare you accuse me? How are you qualified to point fingers at me? Humph! All the citizens of Zenith are under my command. As the Crown Prince, I could do anything I want. I was able to wipe out the Spartax Empire that had been around for hundreds of years, let alone a few rebellious soldiers in a remote city within the territory of the Empire. How dare you accuse me of such a small issue? You are truly foolish." Arshivin shook his head as he pushed Mathewson's burned and stinky corpse away, and he sneered and pointed at Faye with a mocking expression. The officials of the Imperial Military Headquarters and thousands of soldiers around Arshivin all sensed a chill. This was the first time that anyone saw the kind and wise Crown Prince behaving this way. He was ruthless, arrogant, and out of character, making the people who were close to him feel very strange. Faye was looking down at Arshivin and got a little surprised. As a strange expression appeared on his face, he was silent for a while. Then, he shook his head and said, "Great! This is great. You finally spoke what has been on your mind, right? Looks like I overestimated you. This is your real side. Ha ha ha. You want to pretend to be a wise and kind lord. Are you tired from acting all these years? I have torn off your fake mask so that you don't need to be that tired all the time." Faye's voice resonated in the sky above the capital, and it made Arshivin feel like puking up blood. This was a feeling that Arshivin never experienced before. He was used to be in control all the time, but that figure who he hated was in the sky and too far away from him. The distance between them couldn't be filled using soldiers and weapons. This was the terrifying side of master warriors and master mages. Once they got to a certain power level, they couldn't be tied down using military and influence. The king of Shambord was growing too fast, and he was no longer in the world that Arshivin was in. However, the Crown Prince didn't regret anything. He didn't regret pushing the king of Shambord to the opposite of him. Ever since he accidentally saw that secret in the royal palace a year ago, Arshivin knew that he had to make a decision. If he didn't want to give up chasing the throne, he would have to see the demonic man in the sky right now as his nemesis. Even though he looked angry and vicious on the surface, Arshavin was not as anxious as he seemed. The truth was that he was waiting. He was waiting for that person in the royal palace to decide. It was a gamble. Even though Arshavin didn't want to lose the bet, he had no control over the process. He was scared that the result would disappoint him and even make him desperate. It wasn't just because of the power of the throne. It was also because, after he took a deep breath, he sensed a rare chilliness in his lungs. Arshavin snorted and stopped speaking. The king of Chambord could drop his status as the king and mock him all he wanted. But to Arshavin, behaving out of character once was more than enough. To a man in the military, that was a sign of weakness and powerlessness. At this moment, the defensive powers in the capital finally reacted. The orange energy sphere didn't disappear, but more and more masters dashed toward the Imperial military headquarters. The masters from the Imperial Patrol, the Royal Guards, the Iron Blood Legion, the Imperial Night Palace, and the Imperial Senate. Also, a ton of soldiers moved forward, surrounding the entire Imperial military headquarters and Crown Prince Arshavin like a black ocean. Faye stood in midair and didn't speak. As he glanced around, he saw people like Second Prince Dominguez, Fourth Prince Crystal, Demonic Woman Paris, Redbeard Granello, the leaders of the various noble families, the officials, the influential figures, the important people of Zenith all appeared, and Faye recognized some of them. At this moment, all the people in St. Petersburg were looking up at the sky, looking up at that young king on the silver-white throne. In the meantime, that young king was looking down. The southeast region of the capital was initially quiet, but a fire-colored glare shined upon it. As if all the buildings in that region were lit on fire, the dark sky turned bright, and it looked like daytime. A powerful energy slowly dispersed into the area and enveloped the entire St. Petersburg. A real master finally appeared. It is that old monster. It is true. The rumor is true. The Imperial Senate has decided to stand with the Crown Prince. Now, no one can rival with Arshavin, His Highness. Humph! That old man finally couldn't endure the seclusion anymore. He wants to come out and play. The King of Chambord is now in danger. Perhaps his performance tonight ends here. This old monster isn't an ordinary master. Within the Empire, only Emperor Yasin His Majesty could suppress this old monster at his prime. Right now, Emperor Yasin His Majesty is on the decline. This old man finally couldn't hold himself and wants to get involved. Ha ha ha! This time, the King of Chambord is done. He is dead. I want to see how long he can drag this out. Ha ha ha! He deserves it. I couldn't wait to see the King of Chambord getting crushed. As soon as that orange warrior energy flame appeared, the people who were in the area were all stunned. Most of the influential figures in St. Petersburg knew about the existence of this old monster who lived like a hermit, and they knew how terrifying he was. With their eyes wide open, they stared at the situation that was taking a drastic turn in the sky and wondered. This battle could potentially affect the division of power in the empire for the next tens to even hundreds of years. The people who didn't know what was going on heard about this terrifying master who suddenly appeared from other people's murmurs, and they gasped in shock. A light smile appeared on Arshavin's face, but the concerned expression didn't disappear. He was still staring at the direction of that magnificent royal palace in the middle of St. Petersburg as if he was hoping for something. However, many influential figures in the area looked at him differently now. None of them expected Arshavin to have pulled that old monster to his side already. Second Prince Dominguez still had Oka, the disabled little dog, in his arms, and his beautiful eyes that could make almost all women in the capital go crazy were squinted. His face was emotionless, and it felt like everything that was happening was not connected to him at all. Beside him, Paris and Granello both frowned. Standing on the throne in the sky, Faye didn't look afraid at all. This master of the Imperial Senate who suddenly appeared didn't say anything at all. As soon as he soared into the sky, he unleashed his most powerful attack. He left no room for negotiations and arbitrations, and it was clear that he wanted to kill Faye directly in the eyes of tens of thousands of people. Whoosh! The throne of chaos shivered in the air. As the energy flames of that mysterious master were about to envelop him, Fei suddenly disappeared from where he was and appeared 100 meters away. Huh? A hoarse voice sounded in a surprised tone. The orange energy flame instantly contracted before dispersing into the area, creating an even brighter light. Then, an old man appeared after the light dimmed down. This man looked like he was in his 50s, and his hair was gray and messy. His small eyes were sunk into his face, and his eyes looked a bit red. With a cold expression, he looked quite cruel. "Who are you?" Fei glanced at him and instantly detected his strength. It was about level 1 to level 2 low-tier full moon. He didn't expect Zenit to have such a powerful hermit, but this person didn't leave him a good impression. That chilly murderous spirit and bloody sensation on this person were even more intense compared with that red-robbed, ugly-faced trace, and it was clear that he was a vicious character who killed many people. After hearing Fei's question, this old man giggled and didn't respond right away. He looked at the throne of chaos under Fei's feet greedily and said, "Okay, not bad. It looks like this throne is a good item. It helped you to escape from my strike. Here is a deal for you. If you give this throne to me today, I won't kill you. I will just break your arms and legs and destroy your warrior energy, but I will let go of your Shamboard kingdom. What do you say? Bug, since you know my background, then hand over your throne. Do you want to die?" This vicious old man laughed, and he looked like a skeleton with a layer of human skin on top, gloomy and scary. "You want this throne? Hee hee, yeah. Hand it over. I have a question. Your strength is top tier at the Zenit Empire. When our Marshal St. Krasik was being killed by the assassins from the other 3 empires, why didn't you come out and help?" Fei asked earnestly. This was the first real conversation between them. "You mean that idiot Krasik? It doesn't matter if he is dead or not. He is the top warrior in the eyes of ordinary people, but he is a poor chess piece who couldn't even control his own fate in my eyes. He is stupid like a pig. His death was pitiful yet meaningless. Actually, it is better now that idiot is dead," this old man said as he waved his hand carelessly. The king lowered his head and was silent for a few seconds. After a few seconds passed by, he looked up, stared at this old monster who was feared by many, and said, "Fuck you, dumbass. What did you say to me?" That old man was surprised, and he wasn't able to react in time. He never thought that this little king who was weaker than him in strength dared to swear at him. "I said that you are a dumbass." After Fei repeated what he said and emphasized each word, he grasped his fists. Whoosh! A silver energy flashed by, and the Warhammer Immortal King's Stonecrusher appeared in his hands. The throne of chaos lightly shivered under Fei's feet and moved him forward, placing him only about 1 meter away from this old man. Boom! The Warhammer was swung mercilessly. As if he was trying to get rid of a fly, Fei smashed the hammer at this old man's arrogant face ferociously. Everything happened so fast. Immortal King's Stonecrusher was too powerful and Fei was too quick. Therefore, this old man didn't have the time to dodge. He could only try to defend against it. As a surprised and angry expression appeared on his face, this old man stacked his hands in front of his chest, and layers of orange energy flames came together to form several thick walls of fire. He was furious, and he was thinking about how to destroy this king viciously in the next moment. However, crackling noises sounded. It was a sound that this old man hadn't heard in a long time. The walls of fire that he was very confident in got smashed apart like tofu, and it wasn't able to stop nor delay that hammer strike at all. With the same power and speed, the hammer landed on his arms and upper body, completely unloading all the force. Whoosh! This old man was knocked away like a baseball. As he screamed, his body got turned into a dash of red light, and it smashed into the buildings in the southwest. This descending speed was much faster than his original ascending speed. After that, no one was able to sense the aura of that terrifying old man anymore, and everyone around the Imperial military headquarters was stunned. The people who knew a lot about this old man shivered as if they ate the wrong medicine, and the people who just learned about this old man looked at the people around them in doubts. questioning if they were telling the truth about the real power of this man. This was the most unimaginable event of the night. Crown Prince Arshavin looked ugly, as if someone slapped him with the bottom of a shoe, and he even forgot to look in the direction of the royal palace. Second Prince Dominguez unintentionally squeezed Oka too hard, making the latter bark. In the same time, Paris gaped as her mind went blank. The entire capital fell silent. The number one master of Zenith other than the person in the royal palace got defeated, and it was very one-sided. After seeing that old man getting smashed away, everyone thought of the same thing. The king of Chambord is now invincible. In the capital. No, in the empire, no one could balance out this genius who suddenly appeared. Even Crown Prince Arshavin is so inferior compared to this powerful king. They thought. At this moment, Faye's voice sounded by people's ears again. This is a warning. Doesn't matter who you are. Don't provoke me and don't test my tolerance. Otherwise, be prepared to see the Grim Reaper. Except for Emperor Yasin, who established this empire, no one dared to say such a thing in the sky above St. Petersburg. It was a threat, a blatant threat to the entire empire. However, at this moment in time, no one felt like there was anything wrong with this. As they looked at that demonic figure in the sky who was standing amongst the stars, no one felt like this young king lost his mind. As soon as everyone heard what Faye said, they all sensed a chill in their spines. Some of the officials of the Imperial Military Headquarters thought back to what happened in this year, and they wondered if they did anything against Chambord and King Alexander. All the noble families who sided with Crown Prince Arshavin felt like there was a terrifying blade above their heads, and it was going to fall at any moment. Right now, they already threw Crown Prince Arshavin to the back of their heads. They were thinking about how they could fix the relationship between them and Chambord. To everyone here, the weight of King Alexander far surpassed the importance of Crown Prince Arshavin. On this continent that was ruled by the law of the jungle, people sought after power. Therefore, the weaker ones automatically felt reliant on the more powerful ones. Once the weak people spotted someone more powerful than their current leader, they would ditch this leader mercilessly and go under the protection of the more powerful. It was the law of the survival of the fittest. Crown Prince Arshavin clearly sensed the invisible change that was happening around him, and his fists clenched even tighter. His nails pierced into his palms, and drips of blood stained his fingers silently. Only a few people could force themselves to stay level-headed in this situation. Right now, they all had to wait for that person in the royal palace to speak. It was chilly tonight, but it wasn't as cold as some people's hearts. At this moment, the people in the area all felt like the time was passing by too slow. 5 to 6 minutes passed by, and no one dared to respond to the King of Chambord. That magnificent structure at the center of St. Petersburg represented the supreme power of the empire, but its gate was tightly closed. The royal guards who were in golden armors patrolled along the inner defense walls of the royal palace emotionlessly, as if they were blind and deaf. Felt like they didn't see and hear the threat that was not far away. This rare silence shocked many people. Could it be that Emperor Yasin is so weak that he couldn't even handle the King of Chambord? Or Arshavin, all of the grudges and resentment between us will end after this punch. After this, don't come and bother me. Otherwise, the King of Chambord's voice sounded in the sky, and a powerful and pressing energy dashed down at Crown Prince Arshavin as Faye punched down. The air in the area tensed up, and the pressure was suffocating. How dare you? Stop! At this moment, the elite soldiers of the Iron Blood Legion all became the most loyal and bravest warriors. As they shouted, they surrounded Crown Prince Arshavin tightly and unleashed all their strength. All kinds of warrior energies flashed, and everyone gave it all, wanting to protect their commander. Bam! 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 As the powerful wind blew by, hundreds of black-armored soldiers of the Iron Blood Legion were forced to bend down. Under Faye's supreme power, these soldiers were forced to kneel on the ground. With their arms propping up their upper bodies, they struggled and tried their best not to completely collapse. Golden warrior energy flames enveloped Crown Prince Arshavin, who was standing in the middle. He unleashed all his peak 6-star warrior energy and tried to fight back. His teeth gritted against each other forcefully, and his lips were bitten so hard that blood dripped down his mouth. His spear-like straight body started to bend uncontrollably, and his feet sunk into the cracked ground. Then his knees started to bend. Arshavin was giving it the last fight. He knew that the king of Chambord was trying to destroy his dignity and shame him. If he couldn't resist against this pressure and kneeled, his honor as the crown prince and Zenith's god of war would be all gone. However, when that pressure came down from the sky, he realized that it was so powerful, making it almost indefensible. His back started to bend, and his knees also trembled uncontrollably. Even if I die, I won't kneel. Arshavin's eyes opened wide as he roared, and he pulled out the sword that was hanging by his waist. The blade was chilling, and the body of the sword was smooth like the surface of calm water. Then he turned the sword around and stabbed it toward his heart. A prince should have his dignity, and Zenith's god of war should have his pride. Even if he had to commit suicide, Arshavin wasn't willing to kneel in front of his enemy. At this moment, the god of war of the northern bear, Zenith, showed his respectable side. The people around Arshavin were stunned, and the soldiers of Iron Blood Legion were all infuriated. Blood flowed out of their eyes, and they tried their best to fight against the pressure the king of Chambord was putting on them. However, they couldn't do anything to stop Crown Prince Arshavin, and they could only watch the tragedy occur in front of them. Just as the blood of the prince was about to be spilled in the capital, a voice sounded. "Enough!" A majestic and noble voice sounded from the silent royal palace, and everyone heard it clearly. A dash of golden warrior energy flashed by and shattered the sharp sword that was stabbing at Arshavin. Emperor Yasin finally made his move, and he broke this dangerous situation at the most critical moment. As the golden light shone in the sky, the insane amount of pressure that was being emitted by Faye got melted like the snow on a hot summer day. Crown Prince Arshavin was able to stand straight again, and the soldiers of the Iron Blood Legion who were fighting against the pressure even leaped into the air when that pressure disappeared. The most intense moment was here. The majesty of the royal family couldn't be violated, and the laws and the orders of the empire couldn't be breached. Under the gazes of numerous citizens of Zenith, would Emperor Yasin get mad and kill the king of Chambord who had been acting recklessly? Everyone got nervous over this, and their hearts were in their throats. Even Crown Prince Arshavin had a faint joyous and expectant emotion deep in his eyes. However, silence took over. 5 to 6 minutes after the appearance of that golden sword energy, nothing else happened. The royal palace resumed its former quietness. After Emperor Yasin, who rarely showed himself in public, said that one word, nothing else happened. It felt like saying that one word used up all his stamina. Everyone was surprised to see this. Whose side is the emperor on? They thought. Soon, the more intelligent people started pondering. On the other hand, Crown Prince Arshavin clenched his fists again. He slowly closed his eyes and locked all his emotions inside. Beside him, his loyal soldiers of the Iron Blood Legion. All looked angry and sad, and they held onto their weapons tightly. It was the darkest moment in the night. Faye looked at the shiny and fancy royal palace that wasn't too far away. He already sensed the will of the terrifying emperor, and he knew that this was the furthest he could push. This was the silent tactic understanding between him and the emperor. After this incident, what I want to achieve is already done. I taught Arshavin a big lesson, shocked all kinds of people, and showcased my strength. Who else dares to target Chambord and the people around me? There shouldn't be people daring enough to disrupt my wedding 12 days from now. It was impossible for Faye to kill the most powerful and the most influential prince of the empire. After all, that person in the royal palace wouldn't let that happen, and the king didn't want to become the enemy of that legendary emperor. In addition, the empire wasn't in a peaceful time. There were many undercurrents within the region. Although the king didn't like Arshavin, he had to admit that this prince was a great military commander. In the chaos era that was about to come, this prince could use his talent to fend off the potential enemies and protect this land that Marshal St. Krasik died for. After Faye looked around, the throne of chaos flashed and created a series of ripples. Then, they disappeared in the sky completely as if they never came here. Everyone let go of the breaths that they were holding in, and they felt like the pressure on them was gone. "Why didn't you show up? What? You don't think you can face me? This is disappointing." Faye's voice resonated in the sky. This was what he said before he left, and most people didn't know who it was for. In Goddess of Intelligence Elder Princess Tanasha's mansion, at the moment, there was no light in the palace, and darkness enveloped everything. In the grand hall that had moonlight shined in it, there was a figure who was wearing a light yellow dress and standing in front of the window. When she heard what Faye said in the sky, her body shivered uncontrollably as if she was struck by lightning. "Your Highness, you?" Beside her, Zine, who was in her usual purple dress, detected Tanasha's mood change, and she quickly tried to comfort her. "I'm all right." Tanasha turned around and said with a pale face, "Your Highness, you have lost a lot of weight. Compared with when you met him for the first time under the incense tree at the hotel in Chambord, you look a lot weaker." A caring expression appeared on Zine's pretty face as she lightly walked out of the shadow and helped Tanasha to stand up. She comforted, "You don't have to blame yourself too much. Crown Prince, His Highness, seems like a different person now. He doesn't listen to your advice at all. I don't understand what is going on. What made him? Why does he have to push a genius like Alexander to the other side? There must be secrets unknown to us. After all, my older brother isn't a dumb person who would get jealous over other people's talents." Elder Princess said as her big blue eyes looked troubled. Zine didn't respond right away. Dual Flag City. After Rybri took control of the city that was on the northwest border of the empire, he quickly got onto the watchtower on the east gate. He strolled back and forth on the defense wall anxiously, and he looked in the direction of St. Petersburg frequently. This military commander, who didn't even get this worried when more than 60,000 enemies of Jack's surrounded the city, felt like the time was passing by too slow. In the last 2 hours, he had been waiting tortuously. Behind him, other commanders such as Gago were also very anxious. They were all waiting for the same person. On the iron spears that were stabbed into the defense wall beside the watchtower, there were more than a dozen bloody heads. They were Mayor Soroyov and the nobles who had been stirring up the most trouble for the soldiers. After Faye destroyed the bloody butcher trace and took away Special Envoy Matthewson, these people such as Mayor Soroyov and the guiltiest nobles were killed slowly by all the angry soldiers. In the last while, native soldiers were killed continuously. Also, the tragic death of the 19 guards of Rybri ignited the fury on the soldiers' minds. Since they were now backed by Faye, they weren't going to let criminals like Soroyov get off the hooks. However, after they vent their anger and frustration, they became very worried. None of them knew what was going on in the capital that was more than 1,000 kilometers away. Mr. Alexander left in a fury. What is he doing in the capital right now? What kind of trouble is he encountering? Time slowly passed by. As Rybri was about to send the 20th team of fast scouts toward the capital to get information at all cost, an ear-piercing noise sounded from afar. Suddenly, a dash of silver energy flashed by and appeared on the defense wall. It was King Alexander of Chambord. "Sir!" Rybri was thrilled, and so were the other commanders. They surrounded Faye by the watchtower and asked, "Mr. Alexander, you are finally back. Was everything all right in St. Petersburg?" Faye was slightly touched by all the anxious expressions around him. He smiled and said, "Don't worry. Everything is handled now. Don't be anxious. The new order from the Imperial Military Headquarters will be here soon. Just comfort the soldiers and the residents." After hearing Faye's words and seeing no injuries on him, Rybri and others finally calmed down. They walked down the defense wall via the stairs and returned to the military campsite. On the way, Rybri told Faye all the detailed information. With Faye's prior warning and their commanders such as Trace and Matthewson gone, the Whip of the Thunderlord lost their combat abilities. They were suppressed by the native military force, and they backed off into a corner in the city. An hour ago, they handed over the people who killed the innocent soldiers of Dual Flag City, and they gave up on resisting. The native soldiers gained complete control of the entire Dual Flag City. "Sir, we listen to you. All the 30,451 soldiers and commanders in Dual Flag City are under your command. From now on, you are the supreme leader of this troop. Yeah, Mr. Alexander, we will only listen to you now. In the central tent, all the commanders looked at Fei with admiration and swore their loyalty. After what happened these days, Fei's influence over this troop reached another level. To be frank, his words were more commanding than the orders from the Imperial Military Headquarters as well as the royal family of Zenith. Fei lightly smiled and replied, Dual Flag City is a territory under the control of Zenith, and the native soldiers are the soldiers of the Empire. What I did tonight is from the stance as a friend and not a superior and the head commander. You guys don't have to mention this. I believe that the Empire would soon appoint a new mayor and a new head commander. You guys can just wait patiently. Since Fei was really firm on this decision, these people didn't persist any further even though they genuinely wanted Fei to be their leader. What they said was technically illegal, and they just wanted to make their stance clear. They all knew that once the King of Chambord gave them an order, at least 30,451 soldiers would be willing to battle and die for him. After chatting, the commanders stood up and left the tent. Fei didn't tell them about what happened in detail. After all, what happened was going to be spread around quickly. Fei made a high-profile appearance at St. Petersburg tonight, and all the residents at the capital knew what happened. Therefore, it would be spread around the region for sure, and the commanders at Dual Flag City would hear it as well. After a full night of business, Fei rested a little in the central tent, trained his spirit energy, and entered Diablo World to kill monsters and level up. The king was able to have an overbearing presence at St. Petersburg today because he was powerful enough. Although he didn't battle with Emperor Yasin, he was still able to sense the vast amount of energy hidden in the royal palace. He had to admit that his current strength couldn't handle that legendary emperor. After all, the closer he was to Emperor Yasin, the clearer the difference and the pressure he sensed. Therefore, before the arrival of the chaos, Fei had to increase his strength. He felt like only Sun-class lords could barely survive in the future dangerous times. The Nightmare Mode, Diablo World. Fei got to the 4th map, Pandemonium Fortress, and moved to Plains of Despair. After waving the war hammer for the last time, fallen angel Isuel was killed by Fei, and the first quest was completed. Fei wanted to increase his leveling up speed, so this quest only took him 3 hours. Since the Plains of Despair wasn't that big, coming and going from there didn't take much time. In addition, Fei used Town Portal Scroll and created portals that allowed him to go back to the Pandemonium Fortress. After he sold the useless items and bought enough supplies, Fei and Elena started the next quest. The second quest asked Fei to kill a mini-boss, Hephasto, in the River of Flames, and get the Hellforge Hammer. Mephisto could only be killed if Mephisto's soulstone was destroyed by this hammer. However, Fei didn't complete the quest using the traditional methods. As Fei understood this world more and more, he realized that he had to ditch the rigid ideas about this world. This world was lifelike, and it wasn't just a replica of the original game. A lot of items that only had a single use in the game were hidden treasures. If they were used properly, the effect they could provide would be greater than the rewards of completing the quests. For example, Mephisto's soulstone that was in Fei's hands right now had a lot of power. This crystal stored the soul of this deity of hell, and Fei could even hear the roars of Mephisto. If he could control this monster, it would mean that he commanded a deity. Also, this Hellforge Hammer was a tool that could even forge the lava in the River of Flames. If Blacksmith Charcy could use it, the value this hammer could provide far exceeded the rewards in the game. After somewhat completing these 2 quests, Fei's Barbarian's level finally reached 85. His strength was equivalent to level 5 low-tier Full Moon. With the power provided by Immortal King's Soul Cage and Immortal King's Stone Crusher, Fei was able to handle all Moon-class elites. Of course, the legendary Emperor, Emperor Yasin, was an exception. The weather of the second day was lovely. The sky was blue, and the breeze was comfortable. When it was 9 o'clock in the morning, teams of fast scouts who were sent out by Rybri last night came back with the new envoy from the Imperial Military Headquarters whom they met on the way. When Rybri took over the scroll that named him the new mayor of Dual Flag City from this envoy who was quite flattering, he couldn't believe it. He felt like he was dreaming. and he spent the entire morning analyzing the implication of this. He didn't want to bother Faye, who was resting. In the afternoon, the best scout who reached St. Petersburg finally came back after exhausting 3 fast horses. While panting, he told all the soldiers and commanders about what happened last night in the capital, and Rybri finally understood everything. For an hour, people like Mayor Rybri and head commander Gago went berserk. They asked that poor scout to tell them the shocking things that happened at St. Petersburg in detail for more than 100 times, and they were still not satisfied. In the same time, what happened in the capital of Zenit got spread around the region within 500,000 kilometers of St. Petersburg, and too many people were stunned. Faye's domination completely shocked the entire empire. What happened next was in line with Faye's expectations. After that night, the imperial military headquarters took a 180-degree turn in their attitude toward the king of Chambord and the people who were close to him. On the second day, they sent a new envoy and tried to correct all the mistakes that Special Envoy Matthewson made. This new envoy was on the side of Second Prince Dominguez, and he met Faye once before. He was really kind, and he soon resolved the grudge and resentment the native soldiers had toward the Zenit Empire as a whole. Through all these misfortunes, Rybri was canonized as a level 3 noble of the empire and the new mayor of Dual Flag City, and Gago took Rybri's old position and became the new head commander of the native military force at Dual Flag City. These two were viewed as the king of Chambord's people a long time ago by others. The fact that the imperial military headquarters didn't fill these two positions using outsiders was a way of saying that the Dual Flag City was now Chambord's back garden and overruled by the king of Chambord. At the same time, the death of people such as Matthewson and Trace didn't cause any uproars. As if insignificant bubbles popped and disappeared, their deaths didn't even create a slight ripple. No one tried to fight for them as if they never existed. In the afternoon of the second day, the Whip of the Thunder Lord, one of the main battle legions of Zenit, moved out of Dual Flag City and headed back to St. Petersburg. After everything was calmed down at Dual Flag City, Faye had a meeting with the new envoy, rejected people like Rybri's requests of him staying for a bit longer, and headed back to Chambord. The distance of about 400 kilometers was nothing in Faye's eyes. His strength increased, and this distance only took him a little over 20 minutes. Soon, Chambord City appeared in Faye's sight. In the night, the colorful lights in the city were lit, making the city look like a paradise that was created from magic crystals. Even though it was flashy, Chambord City had its own orderliness. Comparing Chambord's night view with St. Petersburg, Faye, who was looking down at his city, felt like it wasn't inferior. Except for the fact that his city was smaller in size, it didn't lack anything else. In fact, it looked livelier since it was smaller. Faye went into stealth and flew in the sky. Everything seemed normal. The only thing was that it seemed like the number of people in the city doubled overnight. The hotels in the city were filled. Since the news about the king of Chambord marrying his 2 fiancées in less than half a month got out, all the citizens of Chambord got excited. It was an event that was worthy of a grand celebration, and people everywhere in the city were preparing for it. Compared with a typical day, it was a lot busier. Also, since people were most active in the evening before midnight, the streets in Chambord City were filled with people. Faye quietly landed in a back alley, dressed up to make sure that no one could recognize him, and wandered around. As he saw the new look of the city and sensed the vitality of the kingdom, he felt very proud. As he walked around, he bought a few decors from the street vendors and got a few takeout dishes from the most popular taverns. Then, he wandered around until he stopped in front of Soros Merchant Group's shops. Jessica was quite surprised by the king's sudden arrival. "Sorry to bother you again. I came here the day before yesterday to eat, and you had to cook at midnight. Today I brought you some food as payback. I guess that you haven't eaten yet, right? Didn't I interrupt your business?" Faye asked as he smiled and put the food on the table. "Of course not. I would hope that you could come here every day. If your citizens know that their king visits our store frequently, they will come here so much that the threshold of the door would be destroyed." "Ha." Jessica quickly calmed down from her initial surprise and excitement and joked with Faye a little. Then, she asked her maids to prepare utensils quickly. She, on the other hand, went upstairs to her room, put on some light makeup, and changed into a more formal tight-fit black Xianxia-style dress. When she came down and sat in front of Faye with a big smile on her face, she was stunning. Jessica was really beautiful to start with. After Abramovich taught her the business skills, and she learned a lot from getting the hands-on experience, she got more confident, and her natural beauty shone even more. Like a diamond that finally got polished, Jessica's beauty was now glaring. She was now wearing an off-shoulder V-neck dress that got popular in Chambord after Faye drew the blueprint a while ago, and her white, smooth skin looked extremely luring under the contrast of the black dress. Also, the God-fooling badge that Faye gifted to her was made into a necklace, and she was always wearing it. It felt like anyone who looked at her for a bit longer would get their eyes burned by her beauty. Since such a beauty was eating with Faye, the king got in a good mood. In reality, Faye wanted to sneak into Bast's mansion to find Angela. Throughout the entire year, Faye had gotten into the habit of sitting down with Angela and chatting with her after a big battle in the real world. Her natural and peaceful aura could cleanse Faye's murderous spirit, calming down his heart that would get anxious and impatient. However, according to tradition, Faye wasn't allowed to meet Angela before the wedding. If he sneaked in and got discovered by his future father-in-law who saw traditions and noble etiquettes more important than his life, it wouldn't be a good situation. Therefore, the king gave up that idea and came to Jessica instead. Although Jessica and Angela's personalities were different, they had similar auras. After chatting with this smart and beautiful girl, Faye felt calm and peaceful after going through battles and killing enemies. Perhaps this girl's aura was really pure and made Faye's mind clear. And maybe it was because Faye saw Husky and Jessica as his good friends. He didn't get any dirty thoughts in his head. Since his murderous spirit went away, Faye was more confident in his guesses. This beautiful girl in front of him was similar to Angela and had the purest crystal-like soul. Outside the door, shadows were moving. Jessica's 4 guards had anxious expressions on their faces, since they thought Faye was an arrogant little white face who tried to pursue their boss. Only 1 day passed, and that damn little white face who came with boss brother the day before yesterday appeared again. Doesn't he know that our boss is the king of Chambord's woman? Although he is an instructor at Chambord Civil and Military University and is prestigious, how could he be compared with the king of Chambord? How dare he tries to take the king of Chambord's woman? Are all the instructors in the university dumb and not afraid of death? These 4 guards thought to themselves with bitter expressions. They were all experienced, and they could tell that their boss who was indifferent to other males fell for this little white face. Just to eat with him, she got all dressed up. The relationship between them was inevitable. Man, if the king of Chambord knows about this little white face will be in trouble. Also, we 4 will also be affected and we might be beaten or something. After all, the king would want to vent his anger. They thought. Even though they thought this way, they didn't dare to remind their beautiful boss. They had served Jessica for a while, and they knew her quite well. Although she was kind and gentle most of the time, she was really stubborn. Once she set her mind on something, even Abramovich couldn't dissuade her. It won't work if we try to talk to her. Also, this little white face is prestigious at Chambord, and he is far more powerful than us 4. We couldn't deal with him. What should we do? The 4 guards were scared and didn't know what to do. We must report this back to Manager Abramovich. Otherwise, big trouble will. Worst come to worst. We will ask Manager Abramovich to send over a master to take care of this little white face in secret. A guard made up his mind when his beautiful boss saw the little white face off an hour later with a big smile on her face. After leaving, Faye flew into the sky and headed toward 5-Sword Sky Mountain. The warriors of Chambord, such as Torres, had been cultivating in the Sky Castle for an entire day, and he wondered if any of them achieved a breakthrough. When he was passing by the Golden Leo Mountain, dashes of mystic energy appeared, and Faye thought of something and landed there.